Alright, welcome back to Game 10 of Lucid's 2022 tournament, where we are playing Phlegra. It is turn 63. We may be having a pivotal battle with Atlantis, and it looks like also we got raided a ton, and we don't really have, we have not set out a lot of defense in areas, so we're probably going to lose all these provinces, which will definitely hurt. Bringing in some more Pale Riders, just because they're pretty useful chaff. Not really planning on going underwater again, but there is that fort just north to the throne that we grabbed from Atlantis that doesn't have a fort on it, right? That has a river in the way. These Pale Riders should be able to cross that river with, our tyrants that, we're able to make amphibious. So we're still a little ways, from wanting to do that, but that, will be an option once we get a little more siege strength in place. And of course, we have, the undead polar bears that fly, coming to attack, grabbing one of our throne mages. Nice. Yeah, so like punishing us, right, for this. We jumped out on the vampire to get rid of him. And sadly, we didn't get rid of the vampire. Yeah, Soul Slay. Wow, super not effective against these guys. I did not realize they were mindless, so these guys can't even be soul slayed. We were pretty much, I think, stuck beating them with the Rune Smasher, which did not work out. So that's a lot of expensive kit. It's still a lot of gems to be losing. So that's pretty painful. A scout gets hit by a mind hunt, so Atlantis may be correctly assuming that it's a little harder for us to get astral cover underwater. We may actually have to withdraw here, but we're also just going to have to eat a mind hunt attempt, on our tyrants. They do have magic resistance gear, so, there's a decent chance they'll survive, but our tyrants have been killed by it before. So yeah, looks like I jumped the gun on this underwater attack. I mean, there's reasons we're jumping the gun, because Utgard's coming in. They have a lot of undead. This is absolutely a fort they could start to sit on in the not too distant future. This doesn't look that painful, right? It's just a scout, but that scout was unfortunately carrying a ring of regeneration, which we swapped out for a water breathing ring, and he was carrying some gems, not like all the gems for an army, so it could have been worse, and then of course he had a water breathing item of his own, so that he could be present to feed gems into our tyrants if we had to fight multiple battles. So this is pretty painful. Like we really, anywhere we go with the tyrants, where they're not in an army that have astral cover, like they really need to have the stealthy astral fellows with them. I got a little lax after we wiped out like the last mine hunt battery. We do have some PD here, but yeah, even though it's barbarian PD, I don't think this is going to work out for us. These Ice Guard are really tough in the cold. Yeah, there's some Frozen Heart as well. Like, yeah, you can see barbarians are normally like pretty good at taking units out, but these guys are 20 protection. So yeah, we lose a province. This is problematic, especially if we lose provinces on the border with Utgard, because they're not gonna wait around for us. They run into our tyrants. Yeah, so I figured there'd probably be a raid coming back here. Was a little concerned that Atlantis would commit, that whole army that was on top of their capital, in which case we might have been in trouble. Yeah, we've definitely seen our tyrants go down to those armies in a variety of ways. We don't really have super different kit, but that didn't happen, so we should be able to wipe that out no problem. Yep, we're able to hold on to that province, so that's nice. At least one raid that went well for us. And then this is the place that we just left. So we did not leave any province defense. We don't really have any defense. Maybe you should start committing like some more defense so that little squads like this can get punished. Yeah, we'll have to think about it. Probably crossbowmen would be our best answer. Maybe mixing flaming arrows in. I think that's probably our cheapest. Well, I mean, flaming arrows is gems, so that's a stronger answer or a more expensive answer, both of those things, than this. I think just crossbowmen, should be able to see this off. These guys have no shield, and especially the non-Ice Guard don't actually have very high protection. And of course, even the Ice Guard, crossbows are pretty good at piercing heavy armor. So yeah, we lose another province there. And then, yeah, this is another location where we don't really have any defense. Very similar kind of squad, so, we'll want to think about this. Only one commander, too, so, like, maybe... Yeah, no, we probably couldn't get away with Soul Slay, because these guys have much lower magic resistance, so we'd have to Soul Slay, or Mind Burn our way through the entire thing. Certainly we could, spend gems. Air Elementals, of course, would be actually not that effective against those groups, because those guys have magic weapons. So the Ice Guard, we would not want to commit air elementals to. The mundane troops, the underwater troops that he's been using, they do not have magic weapons. Just a few undead left here. But yeah, air elementals would be pretty good against those raiding groups. But like, do we really want to be spending gems against, you know, non-gem raiding parties? Probably not. So there's no defense here, so Ulm is able to take this. And now the question of, did Atlantis withdraw? My money is on withdraw, but we'll see. Yep, so Atlantis withdrew. This is not surprising because, you know, there's a good chance Raga will be colder than this location, right? You can see all the rest of those battles, more or less, were taking place in the snow, whereas this battle would not have taken place in the snow. But we did try to, you know, warm Raga up. So, you know, we'll have to see what the result of that. That's looking pretty good. I don't see any snow there. So we'll have to cast that again this turn to, you know, try to keep that up. But regardless of what happens next turn, if a battle is fought this coming turn in Raga, it's going to be whatever, you know, it's going to be under whatever heat the province is this turn. So not a great turn for us. We lose quite a few provinces, not doing super well in the raiding war. Yeah, part of it, I think, is fort placement, so I've been struggling to recruit a lot of troops, even though our troops are pretty cheap, because we just, you know, resources are a huge problem for late age Phlegra. Like, you really, it's not enough to be next to provinces that have resources. I really feel like you probably need to be in a location that has a lot of resources, so probably mountains are your best option. Forests seem fine as well. They're just a little more difficult to move out of. Highlands obviously have a lot of resources, but it's so slow to get stuff like into and out of Highlands. It's very painful, I think. I mean, I guess our armies are pretty slow anyway, so maybe not that big a deal. And then of course also, like, even though our troops are really cheap, like these guys are not. So now that we've been bringing a lot more of these guys in and the upkeep is really starting to stack up, we're having trouble bringing enough troops in to just be putting together like random raiding parties of mundane troops from a money standpoint. And yeah, I've talked a little bit about how I miss the boat. Like, I think you probably should try to come up with a bless for your tyrants. Like, yeah, even though they're going to be wearing shrouds and you won't ever get their protection up to ridiculous levels, I think the advantages that you can provide with a bless are probably worth it. And I'll have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure once you put a shroud on, it's a sacred unit, so that should have their upkeep, which would be a really big deal. It's almost from that point alone, I think it would be worth it. But of course, you know, yeah, I had almost no experience with late age Phlegra when putting this together, and not a lot of time, so this is far from an ideal playthrough of late age Phlegra. Speaking of far from ideal, we lose people in 2 provinces off to the Blood Vortex with you. I forget who has that. I imagine either Marignan or Mictlan. And there have some unexpected events. I'm sure these will be fine. The temperature dropped dramatically. And this is the location where we're at. So yeah, we're probably going to eat a Murdering Winter on our way in. I think we only have one mage that can cast Breath of the Desert, which is what increases the temperature. But yeah, this is slick on Atlantis's part. So we targeted, you know, opposite provinces, but like this will still work out for Atlantis because they can hit us with a Murdering Winter in this location. And then, you know, we'll have to fight the battle subsequently. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to think about this. I don't know. We'll probably still commit. I should be careful. I need to think about this. But I mean, we did try to set this army up somewhat to be able to resist Murdering Winter. Obviously, we're going to lose a lot of human troops. And, you know, while having more crossbowmen, like losing the crossbowmen will suck, losing those archers is in some ways kind of an advantage, right? We're less likely to have an HP route because we're really going to try to rely a bit more on our battlefield summons and our tyrants. So yeah, I mean, this is still bad, but it's just a question of like, well, is it bad enough to abort the attack? That I'm not so sure about. False Prophet, yeah, so, you know, he's going to continue to reduce our dominion. This is like somewhat relevant if it's close to it does look like it's close to the border with Atlantis, because we do want our heat in there. So yeah, I probably should get some patrollers out there to get rid of them. Hate those guys. Lose 20 province income. I mean, we have Misfortune 3. We can't complain about this, but it does hurt. And it looks like probably one of our oppressors was horror marked. It's not great, but not the end of the world. Looks like people have been summoning Demon Lords, so we get 13 units have been diseased, so that's fine. Probably the majority of those are troops, even if they're commanders. We do actually have those foreign recruit disease healers, or the independent mages, so that's not ideal. We get rid of a scout, that's nice. This is one of our forts, not sure which one. And we are now breaking the walls down, moderately damaged on this fort. So, I mean, we do have 2 tyrants there right now, so maybe we just try to eat the Mind Hunt attempts. We can get not this coming turn, but yeah, it's going to be a second before we can actually get somebody that's going to be able to block the mine hunt attempts down there. So we'll have to think on that one as well. Not a great turn for us, but I will catch you guys after the cut. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. This could be the end of the line for us. So let's start with the easy, the obvious. So we know about this province here. It's been turned to cold. It's only cold 1, so, you know, that's nice. Some of our human units may survive what is almost assuredly going to be a Murdering Winter cast this coming turn. So that's going to hurt, but like I said, you know, we have made some efforts to make this proofed against Murdering Winter. But of course, for the eagle-eyed among you, one of our tyrants has, of course, decided to pillage this turn because they are insane. You know, like really, we've had a few moments of bad luck, but like overall, I'd kind of forgotten. You know, sometimes they don't obey orders, right? It's only 5%. I think that's across the board. So like, yeah, but it does seem to crop up at the wrong moments. There's never really a right moment for one of your pivotal units to not do what you want it to do. So I'm sure that's just confirmation bias, but this is definitely a wrong moment for this. And, you know, when I saw this, the other thing to note that's pretty important is Utgard did nothing. No raids, no major attacks. We don't know for sure that their army is still in here, but I imagine that it is, right? The only place really that it could have gone is back into its own territory, which seems pretty unlikely. Although it is theoretically possible, because when I looked at this, right, and the other thing too is that the Atlantean army, you know, has not moved up. The other Atlantean army has not moved up to defend its capital. And unfortunately, I've shifted my scouting network a little too deeply, right, because we lost some provinces here where we got raided. We actually lost track of where it is, but my guess is that it is here. We can also see that Atlantis attempted to intercept our tyrants, as I suspected they might. And just, you know, looking at this whole situation, I believe I've mentioned before that, you know, there's some danger. I never got back to Utgard. Like I said, I don't really want to plan a war with them. So, you know, really all I would have said is I'm not interested and delivered more or less the same communication. But by delivering that communication, you know, Utgard might reach out to Atlantis and switch sides, particularly since Utgard doesn't really need more territory. Like, they have a lot of territory. Like, sure, it would be nice to have Atlantis' territory. More territory is always nice. But Atlantis seems like a pretty skilled player. They've been doing a good job. They have a lot of forces left. Like, yeah, there's a lot of reasons that, like, it's like Utgard is like, it's probably not worth it. The throne is really all that they needed. So I don't really think this is going to end up being a 3v1. And I was pretty concerned that, you know, they'd more or less grabbed what they wanted. And so I actually reached out to Atlantis and offered peace, which is, you know, pretty hilarious because like 3 days ago, a few turns ago, not very long ago, you know, they offered me peace and I declined. And now Atlantis has declined my offer, which we both had a laugh about. And so that just kind of fuels my suspicions, right? It's like Atlantis probably is no longer in a 3v1. They're looking at this situation and they're like, yeah, actually, like, this is looking pretty good. Ulm is not pressing them, like, super hard. Like, yeah, Ulm has a pretty large army here. But Atlantis, you know, while I do think they were trying to, you know, grab our tyrants, it's also just, you know, a hop, skip, and a jump away from this army because they can move through the water. So Atlantis is actually not in a terrible spot. And I am thinking that Utgard, you know, I mean, I've been talking about how, you know, I think they want our thrones. I don't know that for sure. I've definitely misjudged what the player is going to do previously. So, you know, could be continuing to misjudge, but still, I think probably, I mean, we've talked before, I'm probably the weakest player left. But, you know, I mean, I'm holding 3 thrones, so that makes us a good target. So anyway, my thought was, you know, offer peace to Atlantis, see where Utgard goes. We do still technically have a nap. So, you know, maybe spend 2 or 3 turns building up, maybe not even that long. You know, I did kind of want to see, like, where Utgard committed to. Certainly would want to spend, like, 1 more turn. Maybe for whatever reason, you know, there was no lab there. They needed to build one and resupply. I could be jumping the gun. But the thought is prepare for Utgard, but then also attack Mictlan, which I know is kind of out of, you know, left field. But my thought again is that, you know, really we need Marignan, right? We need an ally against Utgard, and Marignan's the only realistic ally. Mictlan is busy fighting on the other side of their empire. We have a nap 3, so it's not like we could ambush them or anything. They would get to move units into position. They're a blood power. It's the late game. The player's supposed to be really good. There's a lot of reasons that the war would be pretty nasty and difficult, but it would still be a 2v1 and would have the added benefit of freeing up Marignan sooner. So that was the thought, but, like I said, Atlantis declined, so, we're still in this war with Atlantis. Haven't heard back yet from Utgard, or not back, but, I was kind of expecting a nap cancellation. Haven't received it yet. So anyway, that's kind of the strategic picture. We're going to attack anyway. Probably a mistake, right? I think that at this point, the safe play would just be to eat the Murdering Winter, especially since we're losing one of our tyrants, retreat. We're potentially going to have to face like a massive combined Atlantean army here on top of Rago. We don't even have like all the elements. Like there's definitely more troops we could bring in. So there's a lot of reasons to not make this attack, and then pull back and hang out. But in a lot of ways, we've talked about how like the late game, things aren't going to improve for us. And while I think in a lot of ways Atlantis is kind of in the same boat as us, though, we have seen some evidence of like blood hunting, right, bringing some vampires in. So Atlantis definitely has much more of a late game plan than we do. But I do think that they're more of like a mid game power. But, anyway, I think long term, our other enemies, it's going to get worse for us. So it's like, well, let's just make the play. We're already out here. We're going to have to eat this Murdering Winter. I don't want to eat a Murdering Winter and go home. So we're going to go in. But I think at this point, the prudent play would be to withdraw, but that's also probably just going to lead to a slow death. And I'm okay with a faster death. Like I said, definitely a little on the burned out side. We've already done a lot of prep for this attack, so let's see how it goes. I don't think it's impossible that we lose. I think there's a couple different ways, depending on how confident Atlantis is feeling. We've talked about how a lot of this army can sail, although with the number of crossbowmen that they have in it, probably won't sail. I was thinking there's some possibility that they try to hit this location with this stack, but now actually looking at the crossbowmen, probably not. They probably are looking to do an absolutely massive combination. In some ways, it doesn't really matter. I guess it does depend on how many squads that they're in and how quickly they can overwhelm the chaff that we're going to generate. So I mean, yeah, definitely bringing more troops to the field is going to matter. But in a lot of ways, we're kind of relying on Wailing Winds. And well, we're hoping on 2 melee tyrants, but we're going to have 1 melee tyrant. I don't know how many human troops we're really even going to bring to the fight because of Murdering Winter. And then again, we're going to be leaning on Wailing Winds. So, it's like chaff is going to rout relatively quickly. So it's just a question of, can we hold on long enough? But, definitely this is a very risky attack, like probably shouldn't be making it. On the other hand, I mean, we could retreat, try to fight in a hotter place, bring in more reinforcements. But if he really has made peace with Utgard, right, and is combining these armies, we're going to have to fight this stack anyway, in all likelihood. It's possible that he splits some off, right, to fight against Ulm. But like I said, I do think that, this army is probably going to be used against this Ulmish army. We'll see. I am definitely trying to justify, I think, probably a suboptimal move, but we'll see how it goes. That's the main thing. We are trying to block a raid here. We're using some gems, mostly air elementals, a little bit of strength of giants on our barbarians. Also, it's a Heat 3 province, so these raiding groups have been doing really well, but hopefully making the barbarians a bit stronger. The Ice Guard will have a little less armor in the heat, and then air elementals to help out. Hopefully will be enough to stop this raid. We're not really doing any raiding ourselves right now. We have committed most of our forces in the area to this attack. We definitely do need to start building some more raiding groups, particularly because this war with Atlantis is going to carry on. Although our ability to raid is somewhat limited until we win a major engagement, because like these large armies are going to be able to easily destroy our raiders. We are moving also our tyrants here. This is just a raid that I think we can get away with. There are a decent number of Forgiving Fathers here, so, we'll see. Like, we maybe have to deal with a Soul Slave battery. It's not impossible that we lose them, but this is probably our best move in terms of taking Atlantean territory, and obviously, we talked at length about tyrants in our own territory. Prefer to avoid that. Also looking like there's probably going to be a raid in this province. So, we have these mages here that have been hanging out. We have a little bit of province defense, and we're going to split out one of our tyrants here. So that hopefully will be enough to block what I suspect is a raid against us. It is still possible that Atlantis is going to keep fighting Utgard. I mean, the game is about thrones. Atlantis wants to win like everyone else, so they would prefer to have thrones. I just think that probably be worth giving up this throne to get out of a 3v1. Otherwise, I think we have a bit more mage recruitment this turn, although, yeah, not much, and most of it just like shackled mages. Yeah, no mage recruitment there. You know, money continues. Yeah, no mage recruitment here. Money continues to be a problem for us. This is the, you know, non-tyrant turn, so that's really like why we can get almost any mage recruitment at all. We are getting some troop recruitment in, you know, maybe a bit questionable to be recruiting troops when we're not getting full mage recruitment, but I do think we're going to have, you know, quite a few losses here coming up, even if we win. And you know, mages completely unsupported by chaff do tend to do pretty poorly. And we, you know, we have decent numbers of mages. Like, it's not like if we lose this battle, it's just over, right? Like, you know, we're bringing a lot of tyrants in, definitely. It's a lot of gear. It's a lot of gems. It would be a bad loss if we did lose. But, you know, we have a lot of mages here. This has been stripped down somewhat. Our capital particularly is pretty stripped out. But, you know, we do have mages in places. And not all of them are crappy national mages. Some of them are really expensive indie mages. So anyway, I think that covers the majority of it. Let's see, research-wise. Yeah, Enchantment 8 we've talked about. Evocation 8 maybe should have prioritized that a little sooner. Pillar of Fire would be a really nice pickup. You know, we have a lot of fire magic, so that probably should have been prioritized over Enchantment 8. But at this point, we were close enough where it's like, well, Enchantment 8 is still useful. So let's just finish that out. But yeah, Evocation 8 is next up on the list. And then just like some limited gear forging to kit out the tyrant that'll appear next turn. So yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 63.